If everybody's here, we appreciate you being here this evening. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Peter, would you like to take roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Nielsen,
Here.
Mrs. Contreras,
Here.
Mr. Rader,
Here.
Mrs. Reyes,
Here.
Mrs. Sashanek.
Here.
Thank you. You all take a minute and like to stand if you're there, or stand in the presence of the flag, and let's recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to shut mine off so I don't interfere with everybody else's.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Just for a moment of silence, I'd just like today to remember all of those good teachers who are so diligent in trying to keep our students in line. I had the opportunity earlier today to spend time with my grandkids. And to be honest with you, I didn't see one of them. There's 5 of them. They were all in their own room doing their own work. They came out for lunch, went back in, and I didn't see them again later the rest of the day. So let's just a couple of minutes to think about those good teachers and all that they do. Thank you very much. Members of the board, any of you have statements you'd like to share this evening?
No, I have none.
If there's none, I have a couple here I'd like to just share with you. I've had the opportunity the last couple of weeks, and I think we'll get into it a little bit more here, so I don't want to take the thunder away about the spelling bee. I attended the spelling bee, and I didn't do very good. I think I lost out on the 11th round, and there were 28 of them. I did learn the difference between garnet and garnet. And I didn't know that a dawdle had 2 D's in it instead of 2 T's instead of 2 D's. And scoundrel and juncture were a couple others I had a problem with. I did anagram all right, but I think those who participated in the spelling bee, and I like I say, we'll hear a little bit more about that. The other thing I had an opportunity to participate in was the Littleton STEM Academy virtual family night. And that was kind of fun. All the kids that were in there had little puppets they could put on their fingers and little sticks to build houses with. And I was impressed with the teachers and the time they took to read the story to them. And I think just the last thing I'd like to share with you is way back on the 19th of January in the City of Avondale City Council meeting, they began this year honoring students from the different school districts here in Littleton. And we had a young man from the Littleton STEM Academy, 6th grader, Kenny Williams, who was recognized for his work and the things that he does in his school and his family, and specifically in setting goals so he knows where he wants to go. And I understand that the City Council will continue to do that on a monthly basis to recognize those young people that are outstanding and their school districts present to the City Council. So that's all I have. Dr. Freeman?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, the community. Good evening, everybody. Buenas tardes a todos. Our students began the calendar year, school year this year by celebrating the life and achievements of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and civil rights activities around various topics: civil rights movement, equal opportunity for all members of society. Collier, in our 1st grade, the students participated in the See, Think, and Wonder about Dr. King. Students drew a picture of a dream that they would have to make the world a better place. And at Country Place Academy, Mr. Bud shared the MLK speech, How to Design Your Life's Blueprint, which talks about the importance of having a sound blueprint that'll guide your life. Astoria Vista celebrated Black History Month, and students were discussing tolerance and respect for diversity during their SEL and HSS blocks, students are learning about African American artists and their contributions to the art world as well. At Fine Arts, Miss Raymond asked kindergarten students to observe 2 eggs, one white one and one brown one. And after making those observations, students were asked to predict whether the insides would be the same or different. And some predicted the insides would be the same and some predicted different. And then she cracked the eggs open and the students learned the important life lesson that even though we may look different on the outside, we can still be the same on the inside. At Quinton, students learned about other important historical leaders like W.B. Du Bois and Rosa Parks. Middle school class is engaged in conversations around Jim Crow laws, Civil Rights Act, NAACP, and the 14th Amendment. Students around our schools are also preparing to celebrate President's Day. The transition of power that just occurred on January 20th is a perfect backdrop. Middle school students at Quinton and Estrella Vista STEM had opportunities to share their thoughts and feelings about the recent inauguration. They also discussed the importance of the presidency and the impact that past and present leaders have had on our country. At Colliard, they'll conduct a 15-minute video journal about the history and the holiday, and several classes at Tres Rios created Facebook profile accounts to capture the personal history and accomplishments of previous presidents. Students and staff at our district joined many others in attending the Stand Up, Speak Up, Save a Life 5th annual virtual conference. Actually, it's the 5th annual conference. This year it was virtual. This year's theme was Be Resilient and How to Overcome Your Fears. Guest speakers discussed various topics on COVID bullying, abuse, and how to deal with traumatic experiences. During the meeting, students wanted to collaborate around designing some activities or questions for teachers to use during their SEL times to support their peers in dealing with all of the changes that are going on this year. In collaboration with Read Better, Be Better, the Fine Arts Academy hosted a district parent night to provide information about reading and leadership, and a program that can be done at home with absolutely no cost to families. Families in both 2nd through 4th grade and middle school students in the same home can participate. The older child leads the younger student through the program, involving their leadership skills while supporting their partner's reading. Also want to offer our congratulations to Ms. Sarah Holt, PE teacher at Quinton STEM Academy for Life and Health Sciences. She was awarded a grant for, I'm not sure if it's SWORKIT or SWORKIT, a customizable workout app that offers strength, cardio, yoga, and stretching routines. The app is available to all the staff and students at Quinton. Mr. Merrill, our Director of Instructional Technology and Integration, submitted a proposal to the Digital Divide Project implemented to help close the gap for low-income at-risk students having access to technology and to continue distance learning. As a result, we have 200 Dell Chromebooks and accompanying Google management license delivered to the school district last month. That's fantastic news, and those laptops will be used to be issued to new students as they enroll to help ensure that Littleton continues providing a device for every single student. The Collier principal, Mr. Brian Delacio, is a finalist. Well, he qualified as a finalist for the prestigious Maricopa County Exemplary Principal Award. He's a shining example of a leader who's worked hard to develop the culture of learning, strong teacher retention, positive school climate for staff and students, and a proven history of continuous improvement toward raising achievement. We're proud of the progress of all of our school leaders in the Littleton team, and this is just another example of recognition they deserve. We held our first virtual spelling bee, which President Nielsen referred to just last month, and the spellers from Estrella Vista STEM Academy and Collier Untitled Elementary will move on to the regional spelling bee. So stay tuned for more details on that. As he said, information about Rain and Ajal will be in the showcase item later tonight. Our virtual athletic program has kicked off its 2nd season. Students in 5th through 8th grade will represent their school as campus teams competing in weekly challenges and district-wide competition. The battle for the banner. Campus teams will have the opportunity to develop sustainable relationships with teammates and the coaching staff, strengthening soft skills as well as a sense of campus community. Students will take risks, learn new skills, and stretch their athletic potential with a positive team environment. The district also recently launched an Instagram account. This will provide another avenue for us to communicate with our community and promote the district. Our academies will also be creating Instagram accounts. Please follow us at @Littleton_ESD_65. And is the exclamation point part of the tag, or is that just I'm supposed to say it with emphasis? It doesn't include an exclamation point? Okay. So stop at the end of 65. My computer wants to reboot. Okay. Before I close, I'd like to remind all families there's not any dynamic distance learning classes this Friday and upcoming Monday for President's Day recess. This will also mean that the last day to pick up meals curbside this week is tomorrow. And Thursday, we will be delivering meals at scheduled bus stops. Families will receive meal packages with 7 days worth of meals. Curbside pickups resume again next week on Wednesday. In closing, we want to express our great appreciation to the Marquita Porter and Elliot Frerick for their generous $1,000 donation to our schools. That's fantastic. And Mr. President, that's all I have this evening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Freeman. Appreciate that. Next item, Ms. Vanderwater, the program showcase for this evening.
President Nielsen, excuse me, members of the governing board, Dr. Freeman. I'm excited to present to you our program showcase for this evening. Tonight, Mrs. Robbie Ann Musil, Director of Curriculum and Instruction, will present the process, participants, winners, and next steps of our Littleton virtual spelling bee competition. Spelling bees help to promote literacy by providing children with a positive goal to work toward and give them a forum to display the fruits of their hard work. But they also do so much more. In addition to improving spelling, the bees also aid children in learning concepts, improving comprehension, and developing study skills. The benefit of spelling bees extend beyond language. Since children are required to spell words while on virtual stage, kids also develop self-confidence, communication, and public speaking skills, and the ability to thrive under pressure. The lessons learned by participating in a spelling bee can therefore last a lifetime and can benefit even those who don't outlast all competitors. That will surely spell success for their futures. We are so proud of all our Littleton Spelling Bee competition participants and winners. Now to showcase this event, Mrs. Robbie Ann Musil.
Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Freeman, and executive team. My name is Robbie Ann Musil, Director of Curriculum and Assessment, and I'm excited to share information about Littleton Elementary School District's virtual spelling bee. Our bee was held on January 14th, 2021 in the very first virtual format. I want to start by thanking those staff members that assisted with the school and district spelling bees. Our district spelling bee coordinator, our school spelling bee coordinators, our district pronouncer, and our district judges. Without these individuals, our spelling bees would not have been possible. This year, as you've heard, our spelling bees were held in a virtual format. We used Google Meet and Zoom as platforms to provide this opportunity for students. We would have liked to have provided a short video showcasing our bees. However, Scripps has requested that school districts not share video recordings to maintain the integrity of the spelling bee. Instead, the next few slides will show a few pictures to showcase some of our participants. Next slide. You'll notice in some of the pictures, the students have their hands up. Part of the directions were to keep their hands in view so that people knew that they weren't using another device to assist them in spelling words. So that it turned out very cute in some of those pictures. Next slide, please. And this is one of our District B pictures towards the end. The next several slides will celebrate the first and second place winners for each of the school spelling bees. These individuals won their school spelling bees, which were also conducted on a virtual format. All of the students that I will showcase had the opportunity to participate in the district spelling bee. For Collier Elementary, Alexa and Angel. For Country Place Leadership Academy, Ryan and Yamala. Estrella Vista STEM Academy, Rain and Lachelle. Fine Arts Academy, Alana and Rachel. Littleton STEM Academy, Vera and Aaliyah. Quinton STEM Academy, Abigail and Nyala. And Trace Rios Service Academy had Jaliza and Emmanuel. The district spelling bee went 28 rounds, and the winning word was casino. Rain from Estrella Vista STEM Academy was our first place winner, and Angel from Collier Elementary was our runner-up. Both Rain and Angel will represent Littleton in the Region 5 Spelling Bee. This spelling bee is being held virtually using the Scripps online platform. Students have been given a window from February 16th through the 18th in order to log in to Scripps. They will then participate individually in a spelling bee where they hear an automated announcer saying words, and the students will type the words into the Scripps platform. This can be done anytime during February 16th through the 18th. The winners of the bee will be announced after all participants have completed and scores are tabulated. I look forward to showing and sharing with you the success of Littleton students. If you have any questions, I'll take them now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Musil.
Thank you so much.
You're muted. He's muted.
Okay, is that any better? I thought it was unmuted for a minute there. Thank you so much. I appreciate the work and effort in putting that together so we could see those kids and wish them the best as they go forward with the regional one. Item number 8 is excuse me, is the call to the public. Ada, have we received any requests to speak?
We have a couple.
Okay. Let me just read this in the beginning that, well, then we'll read the two of them here. According to the Arizona Open Meeting Law, any matter brought forth before the board by members of the audience may not be acted upon at this meeting. The governing board appreciates constituent participation and asks the attendees email public participation comments to the secretary at the email address before the beginning of the meeting. And as we've heard, we have two of them tonight. I will read one of those, and I've asked Ada to read the other one. This is from Stephanie Rudsky, the treasurer from the Littleton Education Association. Good evening, Littleton board members. My name is Stephanie Rudsky. I'm the treasurer of the Littleton Education Association, along with being a proud 8th grade teacher. I write this call to the public to express my own personal concerns on reopening in February and March, along with ones I have had the chance of hearing through LEA sites, meetings and LEA executive meetings held within the last 1 month. We know Arizona is a fragile state right now, and despite possibly seeing some decline in our country's metrics, most of Maricopa County is still in the red. Vaccines are now just becoming more available, but many of our teachers who chose to get vaccinated will not get a second dose until the latter part of February or early March. And then it will still be a delay in the antibodies doing what they must within each person. I'd also like to discuss our concerns for the students. They truly are the number one for so many of us. They say we do not want to be in a classroom with our students, and that would be a lie. To say we do not want to be in the classroom with our students would be a lie. To say teachers are not working hard or working under a Model C would also be a complete lie. For myself, I can say I have never worked so hard in my life, and every decision I make, one lesson plan is for our students. Our students need consistency, though. Their schedules have already been changed so many times thus far. Kids are resilient, but they need a routine, one that sticks. The students need a steady routine. Their families and guardians need a steady routine, and so do all the teachers and classified staff. A routine is deserved by all. Even our youngest of learners have flourished with virtual learning, and to take them back into the classroom right now amid the pandemic would be an injustice to them. I want to end this with letting the board know that I know every decision you have asked to make are never easy ones. Myself, along with many of the teachers I am speaking on behalf of, urge you all to think about our concerns and take them into consideration as you make a decision about possibly reopening on February 16th. We need more time to prepare, and right now we are just not ready. Sincerely, Stephanie Wisdom. Ada, would you read the other one? I believe that's from Cassandra Lockhart, 7th grade social studies teacher.
Yes, and she is representing the Littleton Education Association. I write this call to the public to express teacher concerns on reopening after the President's Day holiday in hope that the board will consider both classified and certified stances in their decision-making process. The LEA Executive Board would like to express their distinct and sincere appreciation to the governing board during these past 11 months. We understand that you have had to make very difficult decisions for students and for staff within our district. We appreciate that as our board, you have repeatedly made the decision of safety for all your greatest consideration. I would like to share some key concerns based on a current survey of staff members and meetings hosted by LEA sites representatives. Concerned that reopening following the President's Day holiday is too short of a time for turnaround to bring students back on campuses, address bus schedule, and meet family needs. Overall, the hybrid model is not efficient for students in their learning or for behaviors. Staff does not feel that the hybrid model is conducive to scheduling for our families. Considering we are a school choice district and we have students spread amongst different schools. For parents, the last time we did hybrid, it was expressed that it was difficult to manage. We have a concern about when families will be polled on their preference of instructional model and delivery method. We always support ample communication time among stakeholders. Thankfully, our district has been focused on getting us the vaccine. However, there is concern that not all teachers and staff will have had their second dose by the time we do reopen, leaving critical vulnerability open. Knowing that there is a substitute shortage, knowing that we have a light at the end of the tunnel, and knowing that we are in a pivotal part of the year, I advocate that the board consider reopening after spring break to safely and efficiently conclude Q3 to give teachers and staff members time to get our second dose of vaccine, to give our families time to prepare for a transition back, including scheduling additional childcare, coordinating with families and siblings. This will allow us to start Q4 ready to support students in ACM2 and safely transition back to finish our year in Littleton ESD both safely and with strength. You're welcome.
We can't hear you, Mr. Nilsson. You're on mute.
Oh, that was so beautiful, and I read that so well. Sorry. I just, again, reminding the public there that according to the Arizona open meeting laws, any matter brought before the board by members of the audience may not be acted upon at this meeting, but would be given consideration. Thank you, Dr. Freeman, and it is on the agenda for later, and we'll address it then. Thank you so very much. With that, let's move on to item number 9. Unless there's any other members of the public that are there. Item number 9 is the consent agenda. Do any of the members of the board like to pull any of the items that are on that agenda tonight?
No.
Mhm. If we lose Dr. Freeman, he said something about rebooting himself, so he'll be right back.
This is Mr. Rader. I'll move the governing board approve the items submitted for consent.
This is Kathy. I second that.
Thank you, John and Kathy. Lita?
Mr. Nelson,
Aye.
Mrs. Contreras,
Aye.
Mr. Rader,
Aye.
Mrs. Reyes,
Aye.
Mrs. Sashnik.
Aye.
Thank you so much. Item number 10. Chizzy, open enrollment capacity for fiscal year 2021-2022.
Thank you, Mr. President and Governing Board. Each year, non-resident pupils may apply to enroll in Littleton schools through open enrollment. A non-resident pupil is defined as a pupil who resides in the state and who's seeking enrollment in a school district other than the school district in which the pupil resides. Applications for open enrollment will be approved based on spaces or excess capacity, which is set by the governing board. If there's more interest or applicants than capacity, there would be a lottery held for available seats. So tonight I have prepared a table for you. This table outlines the proposed determinations of excess capacity for each school by grade level for the board's consideration. Approval of this tonight means that we can meet the requirements of policy JFB and open the window for requests in March. This procedure includes having these estimates for excess capacity available to the public in February of each year, and then the open enrollment applications must be submitted on or before March 31st of each year to be considered for enrollment during the following school year. Open enrollment excess capacity determinations were made by projecting student enrollment and comparing with projected staffing levels. The calculations were made without consideration for our ELD classrooms just yet, because we are in the middle of the Azella testing window right now. And I'd also like to let you know that these were made prior to students requesting their school for next year. This is the number of students we anticipate that each school can accept in each grade level under open enrollment. As real enrollment numbers are known as the school year approaches and throughout the year, the district can accept non-resident students through variances as space permits. And that is the typical vehicle that we use to allow out-of-district students into our schools. If the board is okay with the recommendation, this is an action item.
Are there any comments or questions on what Ms. Chizzy's presented to us on open or capacity for 2021-22? Not, this is an item for action.
Mr. President, may I ask a question, please?
Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Ms. Chizzy, could you talk a little bit about how that capacity was determined? Is that based on what we're projecting as ADM for next year. Just kind of following up on my rationale. I know we've heard a couple presentations that project our ADM, our enrollment for next year, to be way down, down as much as more than 10%, I believe, is some of the projections we've seen. So I would actually anticipate or expect our capacity to be a little bit greater. So could you speak to that just for a moment, please?
Absolutely, Mr. President. Mr. Rader, thank you for that question. This calculation is done similar each year, where we roll the students up a grade level and then divided the open seats by the number of staffing. Now, because of that drop in enrollment, we have tightened up the staffing. And then we applied a scale based on how many seats we had open compared to how many teachers we had at each grade level. So it does, that's a great question. It does appear tight, and I anticipated that. But for your information, I mentioned that typically students come in on variances, and as of right now, we have 288 students on a variance. So this is just one vehicle we use to meet the requirements, and the other, and it's only open for the month of March, a small time. I also want to give time for our own students who want to transfer within district to make sure we have seats available for those when we open school choice. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you so much for that explanation.
Thank you, John. Any of the other board members?
No.
If we're all right there, like you said, that one then would need a motion.
This is Amy, and I move that the governing board approve the open enrollment capacity for fiscal year 2022.
This is Kathy. I'll second that.
Thank you very much, Amy, Kathy.
Mr. Nielsen,
Aye.
Mrs. Contreras,
Aye.
Mr. Rader,
Aye.
Mrs. Reyes,
Aye.
Mrs. Sashanek.
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Jizzy, you have the next one as well. When you give us some information on preschool and Head Start, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, governing board. Littleton ESD has proudly worked to expand opportunities for our youngest learners. We know that quality preschool helps provide a foundation for learning both socially and academically. We have serviced hundreds of students ages 3 and 4, but each year that's only a small percentage of the students entering our kindergarten classrooms. We continue to have wait lists, so we continue to search for ways to fund and provide access to preschool for our community. Tonight, I'm going to share a brief history about where we've been, progress we are making, including the development of a new partnership that you may remember you have been discussing for a couple years with our friends at Head Start. Got to remember to advance myself as I'm speaking. For years, we have had long wait lists for parents wanting to have their children placed in our preschool programs. This year, we see an exception, but this year by no means has been a typical year. This slide shows the data for the last 3 years. We previously had 2 PDG classes which were funded through a preschool development grant. When the state of Arizona lost this important funding, we were looking for opportunities for our youngest learners and started discussions with our partners in Head Start. What we did find, there was a small part of our history where we had half-day kindergarten, and only 20% of the parents paid for full day, implying that our families don't have the resources to get their children into extended programs, whether it is preschool or kindergarten. We've talked a lot over the last few years about the research from the Reardon study out of Stanford. That study showed that our kids grew an extra quarter of a year each year, which means that growth of our students was better than almost all the districts across the nation. This is a testament to our programs and our teachers, yet our achievement is not still where we need it to be. We often hear our superintendent speaking of closing the achievement gap, and we know the sooner we start to address these learning gaps, the better chance we'll have of reducing them. Since we typically see between 100 and 200 families waiting to enroll their 3 and 4-year-olds in preschool, we will continue to make adding classrooms to preschool a priority. We know we have a lot of kindergartners with social and motor and academic deficits when they enter our classrooms. Our students who And I don't think that I have to spend a lot of time talking to the group on this call about how important preschool opportunities can be. We do know that our students who attend both preschool and kindergarten, though, tend to do better throughout their academic career if they do both of those things together. We are also so grateful for our elected officials who fight for funding for our schools, including those who support investing in our youngest learners. Representative Lorenzo Sierra has been a proponent of early childhood education, and we're lucky to have him as a partner. He understands that high-quality pre-K programs set a strong foundation for lifelong learners. As one solution, the governing board considered a partnership with Catholic Charities Head Start in an attempt to expand our early childhood services in our community. We made the decision, if you recall, back almost 2 years ago to place the program on the Littleton campus close to our existing preschool rooms. It made sense to place it there, not only because it would promote collaboration between the preschool programs, but because this is the oldest building in our inventory and was in need of renovation. So what you're looking at on the screen is it used to be 5 kindergarten classrooms that were drawn out, turned into 3 classrooms with restrooms, which allowed us to add a kitchen and a laundry room and a training and a break room. We went from 5 to 3 because there were licensing requirements and space needed per pupil that we were going to add into those classrooms. So let's take a look. What you see here is the before classrooms when they were used for a kindergarten room. And then this is how they look today. This is after. You can see in this, I included a picture so you could see where laundry facilities were going in. This is what a typical classroom now looks like, updated. Bathrooms were renovated, as well as new millwork put in. Very inviting, very friendly for when our new preschool friends do arrive. We also were able, if I jump back a slide or 2, I'm not going to, we were also able to renovate some existing classrooms to add doors to the north side, which means our existing kindergarten classrooms on the other side of the campus could easily access those restrooms. And of course, what preschool would not be complete without, whoa, I'm stuck, a playground. Head Start designed and implemented this fun place, which is sure to become a favorite spot for our youngest learners. I have the pleasure today of I have had the pleasure of meeting with the Head Start group for about the last 2 years as we were planning this. And I am excited to tell you that that program is now up and running. With us tonight is Mr. Yatin Dua, the Westside Head Start Catholic Charities Community Services Executive Director. He's going to tell you about his experience working with us and how their program has been going as they launched during a pandemic. Yatin?
Thank you, Ms. Sue, for inviting in. Those are some great those are some great pictures, and I'm so grateful for this partnership that we have started. So I think, Ms. Sue, you started with a very crucial thing. So before we jump onto those key details, so Catholic Charities is in the entire state. We have several programs, upwards of 20, and Head Start is the biggest program of Catholic Charities. We are directly funded by the federal government, as Head Start is a federally funded program. So we serve a total of around 1,100 children. We are funded for 900 almost, but we total serve, by the time you do the transitions and stuff, we end up serving about 1,100. Our service area is everything outside Maricopa County, all the way out to Aguila, Palo Verde. So we go very, very far, and we serve all the vulnerable children and families. And based off of the needs that we see in different communities, we forge those partnerships. Now we as like Ms. Sue mentioned, the partnership between Head Start and preschool just has I would say the benefits, those core logistical benefits, because after they go through our program, they end up going to the kindergarten that are run by our amazing school district partnerships. So today I would like to focus on a few key things that sometimes, a lot of times, folks don't, pay attention to, but there is a key, excuse me, skill gap, which Ms. Sue, you mentioned that you talked about the achievement gap. By the time you hit age 3, you have kids that are coming from more, I would say, more upward backgrounds that can afford to pay for higher preschools as compared to low-income families. There is a 30 million word gap. There is a huge study that was done behind this. So by the time those socioeconomic groups that we serve, the vulnerable, they are the ones that struggle the most when they don't have any preschool experience. So when those kiddos that we have the opportunity to serve, they go through our program, those benefits last a lifetime and have effects on other generations, because Head Start works on a 2-generation theory. So whether kids are going into your school district or another school district, those partnerships make sense. So now when this opportunity came up by you, Ms. Sue, I know we have been working on this for 2 years now. We were so excited about this because working with school districts only makes sense. As I mentioned before, so by the end of Head Start, the children who go through Head Start have significant improvements in language, literacy, math. They show significant better improvements in social, emotional, language, cognitive development. Children who are in foster care, because we can serve homeless and foster, they can make millions of dollars. They are categorically eligible to be served by Head Start. So they are more ready for school. And by going through Head Start, which Ms. Sue, as you mentioned, those kiddos that go through Head Start have better social skill. They have better impulse controls. They have approaches to learning, and they then, by going through all this, show decreases in their problem behaviors such as aggression and hyperactivity. We also, Head Start focuses a lot on school readiness, but we are also a whole child program. We do everything from child nutrition, we do BMI, we have immunizations, and by doing all that, we focus on preparing the whole child ready for school. And by doing all this, it's been shown scientifically and by research studies that if somebody goes through Head Start programs or families go through Head Start program, they're 93% less likely to end up in foster care. And there is no such correlation found if you are going through some other type of early childhood education programs. So these benefits last lifetime. So when we are preparing those kids for school readiness, they go to our school partners or local education well prepared. So it's benefit for our Littleton school districts and those teachers. When these kiddos show up into the classrooms, they are prepared. They're prepared with school readiness, with the numbers, letters, and they're also prepared with social and emotional skills and all of the other things as we just talked about. And there are other aspects as well that we as Head Starts do. There are benefits that go beyond. We have fewer attention problems, and we have fewer negative behaviors that are exhibited by the pupils that go through Head Start. There is a prison to pipeline. There's a 3, if you drop by 3rd grade. So there is a significant study done behind that as well. There is higher attendance as compared to kiddos who haven't gone through Head Start, because we have certain mandates that we have to meet before the federal government. And because of those habits that we have for parents, they keep their attendance up even when they go to kinder and so forth in the other classes as they progress. There's also a focus on children that are in full day Head Start programs perform significantly better as compared to half-day Head Start or no preschool. So Littleton partnership, when we decided that we are focusing on full day. So we have 6.5 classrooms, three classrooms for 6.5 hours each. And we would be spending a lot of time doing the same things: education, working with the families, working with the parents. And that's another difference between a childcare program versus a Head Start program. And that's what we pride and strive on, that we work not just with children, but also with parents. As you heard Ms. Sue mention, that we have a training room. So we have extensive research-based parenting curriculum that we implement throughout. We have several trainings going on throughout. So we have what's known as a family partnership agreement. So we do a research-based assessment based off of where every parent lies. We end up making what's known as a family partnership agreement. So it could be something as little as, hey, you need to do better in your financial stuff. You need to do better in your education. So there have been parents that have gone through our program and are now successful doing different professions, such as nursing. There was a parent that got into nursing because of our CDA program. So we are producing productive members of society because we place a lot of emphasis on hiring from within. And we have an example that I would introduce just in a few minutes, but the entire economics behind bringing those federal dollars, they are all assigned from federal dollars, but we keep those within the local communities. We hire from within, and those areas that are close by, we have those children, we do a lot of purchasing, we spend a lot of money. So all of that goes and stays within the community. And believe it or not, there is another study that's out there that every single dollar that's invested in early childhood education Head Start program, you get a 13% return, higher than any S&P 500 stocks that we are looking at right now. Head Start produces 13% return. It's all research-based out there, and it's produced to Congress. Hence why, even during the turbulent times with changes of government and all that stuff, Head Start has consistently seen improved funding because of these statistically proven backgrounds. I just mentioned that we place a lot of emphasis on hiring from within, and we place a lot of emphasis on growing within our own, right? Our parents. So I have with ourselves today, Miss Natasha Neal. She was a parent with our program, and now she's employed by our program. We have several cases like those. So I would just like to give Miss Natasha, if you could speak a little about what Head Start does for parents, instead of listening from a director, a Head Start, and all that kind of stuff, listening from a person who lives in Avondale District, actually, would be something great. So Ms. Natasha, if you could please share a little bit about yourself.
Yes, I would love to. And thank you for having us joining you this afternoon or evening. As Jan said, I am a former parent of our Catholic Charities Westside Head Start. I have, now they are in 3rd grade and 5th grade. Very proud graduates of our Westside Head Start program. And just to give you an example of how well, and I really attribute this to their start with Head Start. My youngest is in 3rd grade. She goes to Desert Star here in Avondale School District. And she won her spelling bee recently. So when you shared your spelling bee information earlier, I was so excited to see that. And then my 5th grader won her spelling bee. And then my 3rd grader, and she is now excelling well, and she's in her gifted program. And I have an older daughter that wasn't a part of our Head Start program. And so I directly see some differences in just how they adapted in the classroom, how well they adapted their social emotional skills when they started kindergarten. And I directly attribute that to Catholic Charities Westside Head Start. And it was funny that they're all 3 of them, my kids have the same kindergarten teacher. And she said right off that she knew that they had exposure in early childhood and preschool before they arrived at kindergarten because of their social emotional skills and their ability to perform in the classroom. And she can pinpoint those kids that have been through Head Start. Jan also was sharing how our program really doesn't just focus on developing and getting our children ready for Head Start, but really the importance of the whole family. So I found Westside Head Start in 2014. I had been laid off from the construction industry during that downturn in our economy in 2012. And so I had, for 2 years kind of stayed at home with the kids and was struggling with depression and getting back out there in the work field. So I found Head Start, and I was like, okay, my middle to youngest was ready for kindergarten and are getting ready to go into kindergarten the next year. So I said, I need to get her into preschool. So I just found Catholic Charities by just happenstance, actually, just through speaking with another parent that had been in the program, and she referred me there. And then what I didn't know was I was expecting it was a preschool where I just drop her off for a couple of hours to come back and pick her up. but I soon found it was a place that not only welcomed me as a parent, and encouraged me to develop and grow, to build connections with other parents in our community, through getting involved and gotten referred to the family partnership agreement. So I didn't know what that was, but it was just really what I needed at that time to start developing goals and really developing sending my aspirations and gaining my confidence again to be part of the workforce and surrounding myself with like-minded people. And so that really just benefited myself just as much as it benefited my children. So our Westside Head Start and Head Start is really encompasses the whole family. It impacted my husband, my older daughter, as I said, I had at the time, and we just really became way more grounded in our community. So
Okay,
so
thank you so much.
so
Yeah.
excited for that you have that
Yes,
now
thank
at
you.
your campus. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Natasha. Thank you, Ms. Sue, for inviting us. And like I said, Head Start is it's going to be a strong proponent with Littleton, and we'll have much more prepared kids. And this partnership is fantastic with the community, with the parents, with the children. We are going to make this a long-lasting, amazing thing for all of us. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? You're muted. A little bit about the program, yeah. Now listen to this question.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So the question I had is how many are in the program at present? And what's the waiting list? I saw on your previous slide there that you had the past 3 years with how many were participating, I guess, in kindergarten. But just how many?
So-
Go ahead.
Perfect. No, thank you for asking that question. So overall, we serve about 800, as I mentioned, about 900 children. Littleton specific, we have about 59 children that we can serve. Within those 59 right now, the list depends when we talk about reopening, how parents are, where they go. So right now we are virtually serving them, and we started about 40-ish. Now we were up to 55-ish at one point because of the drop sometimes. So that's why we were serving. So we had an upwards of 50s because we were trying to put some other kids in the classroom, and we found that there weren't many openings. So I would say we are in the 50s range, and we are seeing people coming, expressing their opportunities. And like Ms. Sue mentioned, we had that partnership where we didn't go out and recruit for more kids. We instead used that wait list, how many kids qualified, and we started reaching out to them. So that was the reason why we were here. So we wanted to, make sure that we stay true to that partnership. So we use that. So thank you, Ms. Sue, for
They
providing.
used our wait list.
Yeah, so we used that wait list, and
Mhm.
we got that movement going on.
I guess just one other question, as long as I got the table here for a minute. What's your secret to get parents involved?
Well, that is the Head Start thing, Mr. Nelson. To be very honest with you, it is getting them grounded. To be very honest with you, Head Start in general has a very, I would say, fancy framework. It's known as PFCE. It's known as Parent Family Community Engagement, and there are several different things. But the biggest thing that I would say that works for Head Start as compared to any other program is treating a person with dignity. There is a lot of times that because you belong from a certain background, people are not treated with dignity. And this is where Catholic Charities comes in, where miracles happen every day. We treat people with dignity first. You may be any race, color, religion, background. It might be Catholic Charities, but they don't care about, your religion and something. So treating people with dignity, seeing where they are, and truly, instead of giving them, I think this is what you should do, we truly treat them, okay, this is where you are. What are your goals, and how can we help you? So we don't impose our things, we help them achieve their goals, and to see us, like I said, as a partner, hence why family partnership agreement. And that's what works for Head Start. And the fancy theory just follows. That just follows after, but treating people with dignity, giving them what they are, helping them grow. And like I said, we have people who have become nurses from our program. I'm talking about people, and when we just got a person who got the business degree working with our home-based program, and they were so excited, and we featured that parent in our annual report. From from bachelor's and master's degrees, from getting up to high performing careers, it all happened because of our Head Start programs. And I have so many examples. Someone just went to actually one of my older programs, they ended up becoming an astronaut. So there are a lot of success stories that happen because of Head Start. And our program shines because we are with Catholic Charities, and our people have the dedication. And with partners such as Ms. Sue, Dr. Roger Freeman, they are very dedicated. And I want you guys to know how much time they have spent. They're very dedicated for that. So I truly want to thank them for that.
Thank you so much. Any of the other members of the board have any questions before we have them your captive for the few minutes? If not, Sue, we appreciate and thank you for your presentation tonight. Looking forward to see what maybe next year we can get them back again to see some of those success stories in our Littleton district.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Sue. Thank you, everyone. And if you guys have any questions, want to know more, we can always do more stuff. So take care, guys. Have a great evening. Bye. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. The next item, number 12, Mr. French, are you hiding out there somewhere?
I am here.
Oh, there you are.
I'm here.
You're that little one right below John right there, huh?
Yeah. President Nielsen, members of the governing board, Dr. Freeman, and Littleton community. This evening, I would like to share potential future bond projects the district has begun discussing. Like the title says, this is discussion only. So we will go over a couple of items and then open up the floor to the board to see if they have any anything to add. So what I would like to do to start is review the district's most recent bond authorization. The voters authorized a $22.7 million bond in November of 2017. To date, the district has sold 8.7 million of those bonds and still has $14 million of authorization to sell. These funds are to be used for construction of the new school site at Alomar. One of the main reasons the district is considering additional bond authorization is due to the increasing cost of constructing a school. We are currently seeing costs increase because of a shortage in qualified labor and an increase in raw material costs. These are contributing factors as to why we do not believe we can finish the school site at Alomar with the remaining authorization from our 2017 bond sale. We are also projecting other needs of the district, including adding ionization and sterilization technology to all of our HVAC units in the district. Now, this has become a high priority with COVID-19 and the district's desire to keep students and staff safe as possible. With adding these devices to all the HVAC units in the district will come increased operational spending, mainly seen in increased utility costs. The district is discussing the addition of solar, which would be a one-time cost with bond money, but would, excuse me, my computer is rebooting. There we go. Would be a one-time cost with bond money, but would also be a significant ongoing reduction in operational costs. COVID-19 has also accelerated the rate at which the district is purchasing student technology and will also increase the annual cost of a technology refresh. Because of this, we are adding an item to a potential bond to include money for student technology. School site renovations, you see that on there as well. Renovate and modernize school sites. This is a broad characterization of what we can do with the bond, but some of those items may include items such as a facade upgrade of the schools or other projects that aren't funded by the School Facilities Board. Lastly, we would like to renovate the maintenance building used by our frontline maintenance and grounds staff located on the Littleton campus. This building has not received much attention and the departments would benefit significantly from making the building a more efficient work environment. We would like to reconfigure the space to allow for some second level storage potentially and take advantage of the wasted vertical space currently in the building. We would like to take these items and any the board recommends as a survey to the community. And then we would also like to bring that information back, the results back to you in future meeting. So at this point, I think we would like to open the discussion to the board about what you may feel like are high impact future projects for the district.
Thank you, French, appreciate that. Members of the board, any thoughts, discussions as to what he's presented or that you see that we may need additional to add into that?
This is Kathy. I have questions, but I don't know that they're for Mr. French. I mean, I'm happy to ask them, and then if they're not, please feel free to Dr. Freeman or someone else jump in if it's appropriate. But mine is dealing with the cost of the school Alamar. So I understand based on what I heard that there is a concern we may not have enough money based on the 2017 bond sale to complete the school. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, Mr. President, Member Reyes, we've had an estimate from our architects that says that the $14 million would not complete the school site as we believe needs to be done.
So that brings me to my next question, as we believe needs to be done. So based on that, I have said it before, and I just want to make sure I understand. I understand it needs to look aesthetically pleasing. I understand it needs all the basics that every school that we've built needs. I understand it needs shrubs in a driveway and all of that good stuff, but I want to make sure we're not spending additional money for additional things just because of the location and or the expectation of what it's supposed to look like. I have not seen what, and I really would not be an expert in it to determine what kind of, grass it should have and all of that. But my concern is, are we spending more on it than we have? I understand the cost of material, of course, that you can't do anything about, but my concern is that we're building it equally and fairly as we've built every other school, looking pleasing and a good place for children to attend.
Yes, Member Reyes. Dr. Freeman, did you have anything to add about the cost? I know that I've only been part of this for a small time, but I do know that the cost per square foot for construction is significantly higher than it has been when we built previous schools. So I think we're attributing the cost to that.
So yeah, I'm happy to jump in here. President Nielsen, Member Reyes. So we did, 14 million is the original amount that was in the proposal when we put that together at the end of 2016, early 2017. And of course, the things that weren't anticipated, were hurricanes, raging fires, and, trade war with China. In addition to that, there's been a shortage of labor. So I think what we have is multiple options on the table, and that's why we asked the board to discuss it. You can scale back the size of the school or some of the features of the school to fit into the budget. Design-wise, Ms. Reyes, what we're looking at is AutoCAD templates that are basically, reorganized to fit the new site plan. So, what you would see if you looked at the floor plan, when we showed you the site plan before, is that intermediate wing and that primary wing look a lot like the intermediate and primary wing at Clinton and Country Place and Estrella Vista and Tres Rios. So the design components are very similar, and with the idea that, every child and every one of our employees deserves to go to a school that is, high quality and consistent, that going from one school to the other isn't based on the physical plant, isn't how we want people to make their school choice decisions. Now, we are looking at, awnings and things for parking. I think we'd like to be able to do those. The last time the board looked at the site plan, they were thinking of the Math and Science Academy and how adding some flair and design features to our schools might be advantageous to us for um, uh, uh, securing recruiting enrollment. But those are always, pressures against, the cost of those improvements. So one of the things we want to do, Ms. Reyes, is just kind of find out what the appetite for supporting that in the community is. Of course, we can scale back construction, we can scale back features, we can, like we did at Fine Arts, just hold one of the buildings off of the footprint and build another building at a later time, when there's greater need, by constructing in phases. These are all things that we're talking and thinking about, but the one thing that we can't really think about or plan for is adding to the budget without going to the board and going to the community. So it's the reason for the discussion. The questions you ask are certainly fair, and it's the kind of questions the community might ask of us. So it warrants being discussed. And then at some point, we make a judgment about how we're going to move forward. And right now, what we're thinking is we would put that on the survey to the community that said, do you think this is important? If the board wants it on there on the survey, we'll include it. And if the board wants to take it off, we'll exclude it. And if there's something on that list that Mr. French went over that you think is really important we missed, we can add that. So we are in the formative process right now of the pros and cons of these options and what kind of things we might want to send out. And, there's a question of if we really even think this is a good time to do an election. We understand that both Pendergast and Towson Union will have bond elections this November. And so, it might not be a bad idea for Littleton to be on the ballot with them as opposed to waiting. Those are all judgment calls. That's why we have an open discussion item for the board tonight. I don't know if I answered your question completely, but some of the answers you're looking for, I think they're still kind of up in the air. I will say that we'll get the cost per square foot estimates and some comparable cost data to bring to you so that we're not bringing in a Lamborghini import product, when we're used to a nice finished domestic product.
Sue, could you roll up one slide right there, please, just a minute, so we can see those items again. So these items, I understand it, are thoughts and possibilities that could go on to this bond. Everything needs to be collected. Are there other things you see here that you've seen as you may have attended schools or walked around that may be something that we want to add to it? Because if I understand it, we'll take these items, send them out to the community, and let the community rate them 1, 2, 3, or 4, and whatever the 1, 2, 3, or whatever the top ones are is what we'll consider to put on the bond election. Is that how we want to look at it?
Well, what we were talking about, Mr. President, is, and this is, once again, it's not all printed and ready to hand out. It depends on input from the board tonight. But what we thought is whatever goes on this list, we would ask the parent if it's somewhat important or really urgent, on a maybe 1 to 5 or 1 to 4 scale, and then ask them to rank them. In this case, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is there 6 or 7 items? I can't remember. Seems like we had 7 items, but if you said something is really urgent, you would rank that number 1, or 2, or 3. And if you said it was only somewhat important, that would be your number 7. So first you ask them how important each are, and then you ask them to rank it, and then we can quantify all of that and bring it back. We weren't thinking of anything open-ended because compiling all of that and reporting it back to the board can be pretty challenging. I mean, you could add an open-ended question if you wanted to. I mean, I think as long as we're surveying them, we should get the information the board would like to have, and not, have to do multiple surveys. So, again, what members would like to see, we'll try to, put into action.
Thank you for that. So are there any other things that you have seen or would like to see that we might add to this and send it out? And I've got a couple here, but I'll give some of the rest of you, if you've got some thoughts or ideas that we would like to see added here to make sure our schools are, Class A schools, if you'll say that, match the ones across the street here.
This is Kathy. I have one more. So when we put this together, one, I think I'm not sure it's good or bad to go for a bond. I think it's good because other schools are going and we're going. But, you know, you don't have kids in school. You have parents that's, you know, everybody's got an opinion about that, and it's rightfully so. And so, you know, I don't know if that hurts or helps. People are still laid off. Huge numbers of people still are unemployed. And going for a bond, asking people to shell out more money, you know, I don't know. So I'm torn between if it's a good time or bad. But when this survey goes out, will it say that, well, I understand why I'm ranking it rather than, oh yeah, let's do this, not realizing that it's an impact on a bond. Will that be clear in this? Because sometimes you send surveys out and you're like, yeah, of course I want sterilization of air, but I don't realize where all that comes from. So how would that look?
I'm thinking that's for me, Ms. Reyes, Mr. President. So, you know, one of the things we could do, of course, is to put information with this, but in part of the context, what we're thinking is, given, and you know, it's later on the agenda tonight, but given the kind of pace of vaccination and trends in COVID metrics, that we can probably be getting a lot of kids back into in-person instruction for the end of this year. Sue, check your monitor. There you go. And you know, I think probably be in person in school next year, Ms. Reyes. There will still be a lot of mitigation that needs to be done, you know, because this is a moving target. I think everybody's aware of that. And the other thing that we feel is that as the move toward in-person becomes more and more reliable, you know, we think there's people who just have kept their kids out of school. We think there's people who have migrated to other programs. And we know that houses in our school district are selling like crazy. So we believe the need for space, additional space and capacity will be there. You know, the question comes down to timing, right? And, you know, if people are thinking about the cost of this, you know, when will people be able to return to work? So part of the theory is you got to get kids into school to get people back into their jobs. And, you know, I wish I could answer that. It's part of the reason we wanted to have a public discussion. Are we anticipating, I mean, we need to be out in front of this in our planning. If we think things are going to start taking off next fall and next winter and really going next fall and next winter, is too late to start thinking about it. If we think it's going to be a couple years, and I think at the rate people are building houses around our school district, you know, we're going to have a need. One of the things that we're really sensitive to, and it's, you know, it's not on the agenda tonight, but it is, you know, what would the impact on the tax rate be to people? And you know, we're working with consultants from Stifel to keep that as small as possible. But Ms. Reyes, if we put 6 things on the list and people only want 3 of them, that changes the cost of the bond project. I mean, we wouldn't put something on there nobody wanted. So, you know, if you added up this wish list and it was 15 million, but people only want half of it, you might just have a $7 million bond election. We don't want to put something out to the public that the public thinks is crazy or superfluous or that kind of thing. So we're backing up this process to get feedback from the board and the community to avoid, you know, making a mistake like that.
Thank you, Dr. Freeman. Does that help there, Kathy, a little bit?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate some of the clarity.
Any of the others, have you got anything there you'd like to chip in there? You know, one other, I've got two other just questions here, Dr. Freeman. Oh,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do echo some of Kathy's concerns, even about surveying, as we think about just where people's state of mind is at right now, and the fact that, hey, my kid hasn't really been in school consistently for nearly a year now, yet we're asking about new solar panels. So certainly a very important to survey our community and think about these items proactively, but I am very cognizant of Kathy's point in being aware of maybe how our community is feeling based on the impacts of COVID. Just a few points here. As far as renovating and modernizing our school sites, I think it'd be great if we could be a little bit more specific regarding what that means, frankly, to folks and at the end of it, individual site level, because really renovating and modernizing school sites, I know that there's some advantages to maybe being broad to give us a little bit more flexibility, but to me that's so broad it doesn't really mean anything to anybody, because it could literally mean anything. So I do think if there were some specific projects that we could talk about within our school sites that are going to be meaningful to parents and students to actually include those. Another thought I did have was, especially in light of COVID, is also upgrading our technology within the classrooms. I know as we talked a little bit about the hybrid model, I had mentioned, could teachers be teaching in a classroom while simultaneously be teaching students at home on a laptop? And I think the general response, and I don't want to be over general, was no, our classrooms really aren't equipped for that. But I imagine even as things get back to quote unquote more normal, COVID is going to be with us maybe, forever. So there may be times in the future, even after the vaccination has been out, that we need to go back to a hybrid class, or even some students may feel more comfortable at home even next year, again, as we strive for a more normal. So giving our teachers the flexibility to be able to teach simultaneously in person and online without it being a burden on them, I think is something that is interesting to me. And then I know we talked a little bit about our transportation at our last meeting and making sure that we had sufficient transportation to actually meet our school choice model, especially as we're thinking about new sites in the south at Alomar. So I don't know what our transportation needs are, if that needs to be addressed within this bond issue as well. But those are just a few general thoughts that I had.
Thank you, Member Rader.
Yeah, those are great remarks. Thank you, Mr. Rady. I think we have buses covered in the capital override right now, and our real problem is getting drivers.
Yeah.
I like the innovative technology. I think it would be important, given comments of the board, to say that this survey is the district anticipating the return to in-person instruction in the coming year. So it's going to seem kind of out of place right now, but we're not asking you about right now. We're asking you about, in the years to come when things look more like they used to. And what I'm thinking as you're talking, Mr. Rader, is even though we gave you bullets to discuss tonight, is there should be a little more explicit description under each one, considering the community or lay members. And so what that, when we say upgrade ventilation and sterilization, we mean that we're going to put ionization piggyback units on every air conditioner, not call them HVACs or things like that.
Thank you, Dr. Freeman. Any of the others have any other comments? Dr. Freeman, where do parking lots and repairing parking lots, does that come under maintenance?
Yeah, that's a great question. And one of the things that we were thinking about, like when we put renovate school sites, is there are some things we've been successful at getting the SFB to pay to upgrade. There used to be a formula for maintaining schools, and they haven't funded that. It's been on a case-by-case application basis. But for instance, one of the tendencies of the School Facilities Board is they'll wait till something's completely broken before they'll replace it. Some things, that's not that big a deal. But we have, keep in our preventive maintenance history, for instance, the age of every roof. The last time that it was taken down to the deck, rebuilt, or recoated. And based on that, we have somebody walk every roof and look around for what you would call alligatoring or a cracking, heaving, or any kind of places where the roof deck is pulling apart. We don't want to wait till water's coming in, running down the walls and creating mold. So what we want to do is, as our roofing experts walk those decks and say, this is what you're going to need and this is when you're going to need it, is to repair roofs. And I think board members know we have on average 90,000 square foot school facilities. So, I mean, if you just said repairing your roof is $1 a square foot, you can guess you're going to spend $100,000 to redo a roof. And that is not the kind of expense that we would take out of just our regular capital that we run the school district with. So it's an example of, and I think to Mr. Rader's point, if we think in the next 7 years we have to replace 3 roofs, because we don't want to wait till they've failed to start to do the repairs, then, that would be something more specific that we could give as an example of renovation. Sue, you're going to need to check your computer. Thanks. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. Well, if there's no other comments, if there's anything that you come up with in the next week or so, if you would like,
let us know.
Let me know or send it to Ada. That'd probably be the better one. And we'll just add it on. And then, as Dr. Freeman said, we'll try to get some more details here for us to look at, review, and more specific to what it was. But again, this was just a talking point this evening, and I appreciate your information and assistance here.
Very helpful.
All right. If there's nothing else on that, Mr. French, I think you've got the next item. Employee benefits.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Members of the governing board, Dr. Freeman, Littleton community. This evening, we would like to bring you information about proposed changes to the FY22 employee benefits. Sue's gonna pull up the rate sheet here for us. And Sue, if you make it a little bit bigger. Okay. First of all, before we go through the proposed rate sheet, I would like to provide some highlights provided to us by Valley Schools Benefit Trust, who is the trust who does our insurance for us for FY20. Littleton's per member per month cost for FY20 was $268.89, which was actually 36.9% better than industry norms and 4.8% better than Littleton's prior year number. Breaking that down into medical and pharmacy, Littleton's per member per month cost was $193.66 for medical and $75.23 for pharmacy. This was 40.1% better than industry norms for medical and 26.9% better for pharmacy. Due to these historically low per member per month costs, Littleton has been able to provide strong benefits to our employees at extremely competitive pricing. With that being said, we have moved into a slightly more volatile time in the medical benefits with COVID-19. Valley Schools is projecting industry inflation to be 7.1% on medical and 10.3% on pharmacy, due primarily to the specialty drug prices. Littleton we are budgeting an 8.86% increase in our benefits costs, with the majority of that cost being absorbed by the district. We are recommending the district increase the employee-only contribution of the high deductible, high premium plan, which is that first group of numbers there, to $5,172 plus a $300 contribution to the HSA plan. This would be an increase of $497.40 per employee to the annual contribution, as well as a slight change in the amount the district contributes to the HSA. In fiscal year 21, the district contributed $500 to the HSA and matched $300 additional funds if the employee contributed at least $300 throughout the year. This year, we are proposing a swap of those amounts, resulting in $300 contributed to the HSA and an additional $500 if the employee contributes at least that amount during the year. Administration is also recommending increasing the traditional plan employer contribution to $5,472 to match the high deductible, high premium plan. We've also received good news from Valley Schools during our renewal meetings that ancillary benefits such as dental and vision were not going to be increased for the coming year. We are proposing no rate changes for those in FY22. One change that I would like to highlight to our ancillary benefits is the amount of life insurance provided by the district to employees. We currently provide a $10,000 policy for each employee. We are recommending increasing this policy to a one-time salary policy to provide a little extra peace of mind to staff during these times. It's a small way that the district would like to say thank you to all of its staff. This change would cost the district an additional $17,000 a year approximately. These changes are still being reviewed by our actuaries, but if no substantive changes are made, I would like to bring this back to the board in March as a consent on the consent agenda. With that, I'd like to open it up to any questions that the board may have.
Are there any questions from any members of the board at the present time? Are you still there? There's no question, Mr. French. Thank you for presenting that, and whatever we feel, bring it back in March and review it at that time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next item, number 14, Ms. Kelly.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. The first item I have for this evening is the focus school recommendation. At the last meeting, Mr. DeLesio, principal of Collier Elementary, presented plans for a financial literacy focus beginning in the 21-22 school year. This evening, the administration is asking the board to approve the new site focus and the name change to the Collier Business Academy for Financial Literacy.
Since we had such a nice presentation last time, this is an action item. Is there anybody that would like to motion that we approve as we have received that information last month and change that name in the future?
This is John. I'll move the board approve the new site focus and the recommended name change for Collier Elementary for FY 21-22.
Thank you.
This is Amy, and I'll second.
Thank you.
Mr. Nielsen,
Aye.
Mrs. Contreras,
Aye.
Mr. Rader,
Aye.
Mrs. Reyes,
Aye.
Mrs. Sashnik.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Item number 15, Ms. Kelly, staff work calendars for 21-22.
Thank you, Mr. Nielsen, members of the board. The administration is presenting the work calendars for board approval for fiscal year 22. There are no recommended changes to the number of days in any of the work calendars for employee groups. The calendars have been reviewed by the LEAP committee, and they commented that they appreciated the consistency across the years. These work calendars align with the instructional calendar adopted by the board for the fiscal year 22. Fiscal year 23 instructional calendar will be brought to the board for approval at a March meeting, as is customary for the board to adopt a 2-year calendar for planning purposes. However, everything is in place for the board to make the recommendation for work calendar approval this evening.
Thank you. This is again another action item. Can I have a motion to approve that? I'm
I'll
sorry,
move the governing board approve staff work calendars for fiscal year 2021, 2022.
This
Thank
is
you.
Amy, and
Sarah,
I'll
I'll second
second.
that.
Did you
Who
get,
seconded? There were two people speaking, so who seconded?
Ms.
Sarah.
Contreras.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Nielsen,
aye,
Mrs. Contreras,
Aye.
Mr. Rader,
Aye.
Mrs. Reyes,
Aye.
Mrs. Sosnick.
Aye.
thank you. Item number 16, Ms. Kelly.
Thank you,
Employee
Mr.
compensation for 21-22, and this is for information and no action this evening.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Nielsen, members of the board. As President Nielsen said, this item is for information only, and if there are no substantive changes to the schedules presented, then it will return to the board on a consent agenda at a future meeting. The administration has been working to create a balance between giving raises and maintaining staffing while also covering increases to healthcare and ASRS, which is the Arizona State Retirement, as Mr. French referenced in his items. We are not making a recommendation for increases to compensation at this time, but are giving you some insight as to what we hope to present at a later meeting after the state adopts a budget and we have more definitive allocations related to the ESSER II grants from the federal government. With this being said, we are evaluating the use of one-time money in order to build a bridge to the return of enrollment while still maintaining a conservative approach in our fiscal management. We would like to be able to provide employees a 1% raise and in addition cover increases in costs for employee benefits. This would translate to a recommendation of just over 1% to base salary increases. The item this evening that is under review are salary and wage ranges for all employee groups, which include classified, certified, and administration. All of the schedules are attached to the item this evening. Ranges have been adjusted to meet the requirements for minimum wage and to allow all employees to receive a raise should we be able to make this small adjustment. There's also a stipend and addenda schedule that is attached. It has two slight modifications. There's an additional classification for national certification. This addition is comparable to the other certifications that require a significant amount of work in their field that relates specifically to children and families in the school setting. The change is being made to include the Certified Advanced Children, Youth, and Family Social Worker credential. That's a mouthful. The other change in the schedule is the way the incentive for signing contracts is calculated and paid out. This year, we're recommending that the signing incentive be a flat amount of $450 rather than it being a minimum amount and then the total allocation being split between the pool of signers. Only returning employees would be eligible to receive this stipend. The amounts for the 301 compensations have been changed to TBD or to be determined and will be revisited after the board considers performance pay at a later meeting. We will need to modify performance pay plans, but our intent is to maintain the level of compensation for those employee groups. Again, the only thing under consideration at this time are salary and wage schedules, and if there are no substantive changes, we will return this on a consent agenda at a future meeting. Questions?
Any of the members of the board have a question for Ms. Kelly? If not, then we'll be waiting for that to appear and whatever to be determined into the future when we get those other numbers from the state. Thank you. Doing so well, would you like to do one more? Job description and classification.
President Nielsen, thank you so much for letting me wrap my final item. President Nielsen, members of the board, one of your goals is to develop a highly effective organization that aligns people and programs to match the needs and resources of our growing organization. The item this evening is for information only and no action will be taken. Annually, the administration looks at staffing and makes recommended changes to the board. Due to the significant change in work this past year, we would like to repurpose two positions that we currently have in the budget. We would like to reconfigure a director from the Ed Resources Department over to the Human Resources Department and also repurpose a support staff position to assist with the streamlining of tasks that were previously housed across multiple departments. We do not currently have a Director of Human Resources job description, but do have the position of Director created within the structure of the district. Duties of the Director of Human Resources would include assisting the oversight of the Human Resource Department under my direction. This position would also provide a bridge between HR and Ed Resources by monitoring and assisting supervisors in the area of supervision and evaluation. This also includes instructional improvement. They would be responsible for informing senior administration of changes in regulations, employment laws, policies, and practices. This position would also allow the district to be proactive in developing talent as the labor market continues to be strained in the area of leadership, particularly in the public sector. Currently, there is no leadership role between myself and the HR coordinator, which is challenging when having a successful succession plan for the district. Succession planning is important to help with the mitigation of both planned and unplanned leadership changes by building an in-house leadership pipeline. The district has been working over the last couple of years to create this pipeline on the operations side of the organization, as it is in place on the education side. The second position, student information specialist, would serve as a liaison for all sites and departments within the district to ensure effective and efficient utilization of our student information system, which is called Synergy. This position would assist with management of all processes involved in the integration of district and state information. Currently, this responsibility is parceled out across multiple departments that include IT, student services, school leadership, exceptional student services, and curriculum and assessment. The position would be responsible for ensuring that the student information system is accurate and the software is used to the full potential of its capability. More information on staffing recommendations will come at a future meeting as we continue to look at managing the changes that have occurred this year. These two job descriptions have been developed to allow us to repurpose current positions within our board-approved staffing allocations. And if there are no substantive changes for this item, then it will return on a future consent agenda. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Are there any questions for Ms. Kelly this evening on that repurposing of those two positions?
Mr. Nielsen, I have a question.
Please, go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to clarify, I think I heard you correctly that these two positions already existed but are vacant and they're just being reclassified. And kind of second part of that question, is there a budgetary impact to this change?
Mr. Rader, thank you for your question. That is correct. The positions were already created in prior years and we would just be repurposing them. The positions would not have a budgetary impact and they are partially paid out of grant funds, which is why the bridge between the Human Resources and Educational Resources Department would exist to allow us to create that funding opportunity.
Well, I think it's a great idea and important that we have a Director of Human Resources. So I appreciate you bringing this forward.
Thank you.
Any other questions that you might have? If not, Kelly, thank you very much for your information tonight.
Thank you.
Dr. Freeman, legislative update.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. There is a lot happening at the legislature this year. I'm sure a lot of people are following different things happening down there. So one of the things that happened last year, the session ended fairly abruptly with the adoption of what was called the skinny budget. There were a whole lot of bills left in limbo at sine die, and many of those have been resurrected. There also seems to be a lot of interest in alternatives to public schools, and I'll go over some of those now. There's only the rest of this week and next week for new bills to be heard if they have not been heard already. except for strikers. So we're past the deadline for dropping bills. Bills that currently exist can sometimes be amended to strike everything and put new language in. There's a process for that. There are bills and resolutions moving on the aggregate expenditure limit. I think, you know, I saw maybe at least a half a dozen things between bills and resolutions. So I think that's going to move forward. There's some bills for pandemic relief, and they've passed out for schools. They've passed out of House and Senate education committees. I'll bring a couple of those to your attention. What they did on these two is they put mirror legislation in the House and the Senate. So they're House Bill 2402 and 2403, and then Senate Bill 1165 and 1178. So the way this works is on the Senate Ed side, 1165 is matched up on the House side with 2403. What that bill does is removes the requirement of teacher evaluations in order for teachers to be eligible to receive performance pay from the Classroom Site Fund and to have all of the calculations that were required in teacher evaluations before not held against the teacher. There was also a rule that if you were marked developing for so many years, you couldn't teach anymore. So this legislation has passed out of the Senate. It's on third read in the House. It looks like it's moving, and essentially to hold teachers harmless during this distance learning pandemic period, and it only suspends it for this year, not going forward. Then 2402 and Senate Bill 1178 put a pause on the A to F letter grade system. And originally it was 2 years. It's been amended down to 1 year. It's passed both out of the House and the Senate, and right now it's waiting on the governor's desk. So I think it's a pretty good chance that will be approved, especially considering it's only 1 year. There's a concurrent resolution in the House, passed unanimously out of House Ed, and it's been transferred to the Senate. If passed, the bill would refer the repeal of English-only instruction to voters to allow dual language programs again. I don't think those resolutions need the governor's signature. That means that, you know, we probably have some interesting activity on the ballot ahead, and there's other resolutions that are moving. I don't know if they're all gonna make it out of the House, but they're very active down there with that. Now, one of the bills that was mentioned when we looked at Head Start Preschool, House Bill 2015, appropriates a preschool development grant. The state used to have block grants, and we lost all of those during the recession years. This is sponsored by Legislative District 19 Representative Sierra, as Ms. Chizzy mentioned when she was talking about preschool. It doesn't start out with that much money next year. It starts out at $7.5 million, but it builds up to 22.5 by fiscal year 24. It's already passed out of House Ed and Appropriations, so it's ready for rules. And rules is where it has to be passed before it can go to the floor. It's moving, but it's you know, not moving as fast as some other things. Good news is in the competition for available funds this year, it is, you know, one of those that's still got some legs, and we really hope to see that get through, because preschool and pre-K programs in Arizona have been underfunded for a long time, and they're super important. House Bill 2268 requires total compensation statements on paychecks for educators. It's passed out of the House and moved to the Senate, and we already have that on our synergy reports. So I thought it was just an interesting bill, but I don't think it'll impact Littleton. House Bill 2241 passed out of the House and is going to the Senate. It requires the State Board of Education to include competency requirements in some courses study as students are taught about the Holocaust and other genocides. It has to happen at least twice between grades 7 and 12. So bring that to your attention, because the state board may end up putting one of those portions of content into grade 7 or 8. If they do, we'll deal with that in years to come, and probably need to review that curriculum and materials with everybody. They may also put both of them in high school. I don't know. But that looks like it's got a lot of support and moving. Senate Bill 1227 would direct the committee to determine appropriate class size, methods of reducing class size, cost of reducing class size. It's on the Senate cow. It originated in the Senate. It doesn't have a fiscal note, so it may not have a lot of resistance, unless somebody really doesn't want to know what it costs to reduce class size, which is really expensive. Some of the bills that are a little more negative and could be detrimental. There's a lot on vouchers and money going to private school and alternative programs. So Senate Bill 1452 expands ESAs, which is what Arizona calls their vouchers, to all Title I students, and that's about 60% of all students in Arizona. It passed out of Senate Education on a party line vote. And so for those of you who aren't that familiar, a lot of these pass out unanimously, or maybe 8-1. When it's a party line vote, that means it's 5-4 or 4-5 or something if there's 9 people on the committee, and there's more Republicans on the committee than Democrats. A party line vote means the Republicans passed it with just their members and the Democrats voted against it. And so this is a party line vote. You may have seen Senator Boyer saying that this was a civil rights issue to expand choice to families. It allows some students to double dip with both ESAs and STO scholarships. It is in caucus, it's awaiting amendments, but it could go to the Senate floor at any time. And there's more bills like this. There's Senate Bill 1118, and that's a strike all. That's the one that I referred to where the bill said something else before, and now it's amended and put in Senate approps to expand STOs. Those are, stop me if I'm too jargony, student STOs, student vouchers, tuition organizations. Don't even know my own acronyms. Student tuition organizations. So you send money to a third party, which then gives it to the family to help pay for their private school. It extends STOs to people who are homeschooled. So you could get an STO and I guess give it to yourself to keep your kid at home. If you're homeschooled, if you just moved to Arizona, or if you got an ESA in the past, you can get an STO. You'll find this interesting. The taxpayer subsidy has gone up by more than 35% to $5,600 for pre-K and $7,500 for grades 9-12, with an automatic escalator built in so that the program grows exponentially each year. It passed out of appropriations on a party line vote today. Senate Bill 1683 would take $10 million from the general fund for transportation grants. And these would be about $80 a month to parents who want to take their kids out of district schools to help them with transportation to whatever school of choice they had. It's not for district parents to drive their kids to district schools. It's only if you don't want to go to a district school. You can get $80 a month to help with gas or cab fare or Uber. It was in Senate Ed today. I'm not sure what happened with that. My guess, it probably got voted on party line vote, but we'll follow up on that with board and members. Senate Bill 1139 removes the 40-40-20 split from the classroom site fund that you're used to calling 301. It makes the use of those monies more flexible. There's been a lot of amendments to that. It's out of the Senate and into the House, so there's some negotiating there, but this is one of the things people were afraid would happen when it was no longer voter protected, that the legislature would start making changes to it. And we'll expect to see more of that, or some of that money actually used for other purposes in other ways down the road. There's a bill called Project Rocket. It's House Bill 2174. It passed out of House Ed with amendments delaying its start. It's being held so far in another committee, so we don't know what's going to happen. It was something designed on the 9th floor that's not designed very well, not really in collaboration with the education community, has a lot of hoops for people to jump through. It's temporary money, it's test score based, and they say it's it's supposed to help because it's low income eligible districts. It's going to go to appropriations, I think, so we'll see. But it's highly prescriptive, short-term money that the education community, what we were looking for was opportunity funds. So where kids like the families that you heard described in Head Start need a help up, that districts could plan to do extra programs for them. This is what happened instead. So we don't know what'll happen with that, but it was one of the governor's projects in a prior year. It was not in his current year budget, but it was resurrected. Senate Bill 1685 bans attendance boundaries for school districts. It requires schools with an enrollment that exceeds capacity to set up lotteries. That was on Senate Ed today. I don't even know how that would work, but we'll follow up with that to see where it's going. It's just, I think, interesting for school board members to be aware that the legislature's, getting into the kind of the daily operations that way of managing student enrollment. I don't know how you can plan ahead for a school district with other people telling you where the kids go. House Bill 2063 requires a teacher to retain or fail a student if specific test scores aren't met. That was on Senate Ed today. And I think most everybody on this board already knows some of the issues with standardized testing and how insensitive they are to learning and instruction. That would be a real challenge. House Bill 2125 would prohibit suspension and expulsion of students in grades K-4. That has a lot of discussion, is continuing to be amended as it moves. It's now in the House caucus. What a lot of us would like to see is interventions like you heard from Head Start, where families get some help with some of these students that have really significant behavior problems in early grades. I know you've heard stories of staff being punched, hit, bitten, bookcases and furniture being turned over. Really, probably the majority of our workman's comp claims come from trying to manage some of these students who are having a real challenge in the regular school setting. So, instead of having this taken away, we'd like to see additional help for these kids and these families, or at least get the help before you take it away. It looks like it's moving, and we'll have to possibly make some policy changes next year if that goes through. Senate Bill 1058 would require districts to post all learning materials and activities that are used for student instruction during the prior year, and any procedures that were used to review those materials, and put all of that on our website. That was amended to remove the requirement to include materials, but gave parents the right to review them. That's headed to the Senate COW, and probably, it will, I think it'll move forward in some form. It may still have floor amendments. House Bill 2138 would allow universities to offer their own optional retirement program to all employees. It's been held And part of the reason that's important is because if certain groups get to start leaving the Arizona state retirement system, and all the calculations are based on, you know, its membership, you know, the number of people who are contributing and the percent contributing, that would throw it into kind of an actuarial tailspin. People are concerned about how much people are having to pay out of their paychecks to be part of the program, but that's also part of the reason why it's one of the most solvent retirement systems in the country, and of the three in our state, the most healthy of all three. Now, that's just a list of some of the things happening that I highlighted that I thought may relate to our work going forward. If there's another bill or anything that members would like to have on the radar, have me report on in the weekly update, or anything else, or if there's questions or clarifications I need to do, I'd be happy to try to entertain those at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Freeman. Any of you have any comments or additional questions on any of those Senate or House bills, or anything that you've heard or seen in the last couple of weeks? If not, Dr. Freeman, thank you so much for that presentation. So many things going on down there. And I know that's just part of it. I was reading the other day, like there's 1,675 different bills that they've got to address or whatever. So
yeah, that's not unusual.
Okay.
But the tenor toward ESAs and kind of the negative demeanor toward K-12 district community schools is more pronounced this year than years past. A little less veiled.
Thank you. All right, with that one, my last item on our list here. Would you like to review that one with us, Dr. Freeman? Digital learning instructional models for COVID metrics.
Yeah, I'd like to walk through the descriptive material in the item a little bit. So one of the things that, if you stop right there, one of the things that we have done on a monthly basis is kind of asking the board when's the right time to return to in-person. The last time we met, I think we were hopeful that vaccines would have been moving forward a little faster and we might be able to return after President's Day. You heard comments from officers in our Teachers Association, you know, hoping to push that back. You know, we've also seen comments for teachers that, you know, they're really worried about their kids and they want to get back in their classrooms. And I don't know who any of you may have talked about, but talked to, but I'm assuming you've had some conversations with parents, constituents, or teachers in the elapsed time. This is just to remind you how the metrics were set up, and what the green, yellow, and red, or minimal, moderate, and substantial metrics were. You know, we report this to the board pretty regularly, and I think that some of the recommendation on metrics may be changing as vaccinations get out, but we don't have any clue as to what that might be or how that might look. If we scroll down a little more, I would review that and stop there. We had that peak, and you can see in that graph, you know, where the cases per 100,000 really peaks up. It went up to 1,200 cases, and now we're down to 761. But the trough that you see down there on the left was after the end of the summer, in the fall, when the first time we tried to come back to hybrid learning. And you can see that the scale of cases that we're at now compared to when we came back last time are, well, you know, they're double, triple, quadruple what they were last time that we tried to come back. So one of the things that I've done for the board and for the audience tonight is put together two bands at the end of this graph, and they're labeled A and B. You can see graph A just assumes that things are going to be steady for the next 2 weeks, and group B assumes that they're going to continue to drop for the next 2 weeks. Now, one of the things that's important about this graph is that the data that we get is already a couple weeks old. So this data that was reported on February 4th, last Thursday, we'll get new data next Thursday, actually dates back to the week of January 31st. So, so here we are on the 9th with a little bit of delay in our data. We don't know really if things are continuing to drop or if things are leveling off. But I wanted to do these two scenarios because what you can see is if they're leveling off, they're all still in red and substantial metrics. If they're dropping, there's one metric, which is the illness hospitalizations, which has dropped down to the moderate range, yellow. But the other percent positivity and illnesses are still in the red range, even if we extend the trajectory of the current drop for 2 weeks. So that's a concern. If we extend the positivity out even one more week at the same slope, it drops to 16.8%. And positivity is one of the most important metrics for us. If we scroll down a little bit, there is some research that shows, let's stop there, that that when the positivity in the community gets up in the 20-25%, is that children can be active participants in spreading virus. When it's lower, children probably are not going to be virus spreaders. So, you know, the tendency is for them not to be until the community is rich with virus. And so those days when we were at 25 and even right now at 20%, probably would not be wise to put kids in school because they could be contributing to spread. But as we drop below that and have other mitigation in place, it's possible that kids could come to school and not do a lot of spreading. Now, one of the other things that we need to consider is that CDC guidelines are expected later this week. It's unfortunate for us. They may come out tomorrow, but we had our board meeting on Tuesday. And so those are new guidelines for opening schools. And one of the things that we're anticipating is that they may take into consideration vaccinations for teachers because we're in a new administration and what the impact on recommendations for getting back to school might be. And we can report that to the board when it comes out. It's just not available for the meeting tonight. We've surveyed teachers as well as the association. Right now, only 5% of our teaching staff have currently completed the full vaccine regimen. The majority are somewhere in the process of getting one or waiting for two or trying to get signed up for two. Of our employees participating in the Tallison pod, their second dose is scheduled for February 26 and 27. So they will not have had their second dose if we return after President's Day. They would reach their maximum level of immunity by about March 14th, just in time for break. According to our survey, roughly 1 in 5 teachers do not have plans for vaccinations. So we'll have to work to see if they're going to be online or Model C matches for them this spring and next fall. We are scheduled right now to continue with hybrid learning models on February 16th. And I know the teachers expressed some concerns about logistics, but they haven't been involved in logistics planning. So they're not in the transportation meetings, in the food service meetings. If the board decides to move forward, the district plan is to implement the same plan we did last time. So all of those components that are in Synergy, all of the plans that we used when we tried to come back in the fall, we would not try to do anything fancy or anything more than that, which would be to re-implement those logistics. We do have some changes in bus drivers. Transportation is already looked at making changes to routes based on changes in student census and driver availability. I think maybe we were looking at cutting one route. So, logistics is what our support people do, and they're pretty good at that. The concern about whether families are ready or not, I don't know. The board can weigh in on that. I mean, we've, every month we've given people a month's notice that the next date to open may be coming up. There is concern about new case spikes from Super Bowl or the new variants. Arizona now is included in the states that have the more virulent strain. If you scroll down a little bit, you can see that Arizona remains pretty high for case rates. The darker the blue, the higher your case rates, and that's last 7 days from last week. So the board may want to consider staying in distance learning model, determining a return date at another meeting, or trying to determine a return date now, or reaffirming the return date for after President's Day. That's, Mr. President, the best information I have to inform the board on what's happening with the teachers' vaccination and the metrics. And so, I think after this, it's a matter of, people really kind of figuring out in their heart of hearts what they think the right thing to do is. And then, whatever the board votes tonight, we'll do our best to make it happen.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Freeman.
I don't know if there's any other questions too. I don't need to be aloof. I'm happy to try and answer questions if board members have any.
Any questions, members of the board? Thoughts?
This is Kathy. I'll start. So
Sure.
I've served quite a few years on the board, and this is definitely one of the tougher decisions that I think you have to look at. But I have had more calls from parents than I have in all my years sitting on the board. And that's a lot. I've heard from parents. I've certainly heard from teachers. And believe it or not, I actually have heard from some students with their families. Students obviously have a voice in this. And I don't think we should forget, what kind of strain it may put on them as well. And there's no easy answer. I think everyone has a very strong opinion, but I think there are children that do flourish in online learning, but I believe that there are more children that do not flourish online for many different reasons. And so for me, I'm going to stick to the February 16th. I think if it's not looking at Super Bowl numbers, we'll be talking about looking at Easter. If it's not Easter, it'll be St. Patty's Day gathering. If it's not St. Patty's Day gathering, it'll be something else. And unfortunately, COVID is here. I don't see it going away. I wish it would. It's not. There's always going to be, if it's not that, there's a new strain where the shots are not effective. So I would like to see hybrid instituted February 16th. And Dr. Freeman, thank you for the clarity on the logistics. I was concerned we weren't ready, but you have clarified that, so I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kathy. Amy, Sarah, John, any of the rest of you?
This is Amy. I am like Kathy has said, there are so many thoughts going through my head as a parent, as a teacher myself, and then as a board member. I just don't think that I personally feel comfortable opening up on the 16th. I don't like our numbers. I don't like the fact that so many of our teachers probably will not be fully vaccinated. And honestly, the students have me concerned. If our numbers are so high, then they are spreading it amongst themselves and then taking it back to their homes. So I would feel more comfortable waiting until we come back from spring break, but knowing the information I have now.
Thank you, Amy. Sarah, how about you?
This is also something that I've been, it's been heavy on my mind and heavy on my heart. I'm a parent myself. I'm a teacher myself. I see it from many different aspects. But I too have to just think to, you know, our teachers are struggling with getting their shots and getting fully vaccinated. I just would feel more comfortable in considering the safety overall and waiting until after spring break.
Thank you.
I think the numbers right now are just too high, and if we're also looking at those metrics, it has us at distance learning right now.
Thank you. John, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still hanging in there. Thank you, Mr. President. Just echoing everybody's thoughts. I think throughout this last year, the health and safety of our staff and students has been paramount in every decision we've made, and that continues to be on the forefront of my mind. I actually agree quite a bit with what Kathy had to say, but again, very mixed feelings, as well as we get a large number, it sounds like, of our staff that won't complete that second component of the vaccination until the end of February. And I do want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to have adequate mitigation measures in place. And I do believe vaccination is a key component of that. So I am okay delaying, if you will, until we come back from spring recess. Just kind of maybe a wrinkle in the discussion is I was hoping we would be able to come back from spring recess in a Model A or a full classroom setting as opposed to the hybrid model. I don't know if that's potentially a compromise. I hope at that point a very large percentage of our teachers and staff vaccinated, in addition to our additional mitigation measures, might allow us to pursue a full classroom or a normal classroom, if you will, in a Model A.
Dr. Freeman, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Rader. Along those lines, we were just discussing today, you know, at the green level, that we probably need to think about light green and dark green, or yellow green and blue green. Is that the idea that we're going to live in this perfect world where all these metrics are low and stay low may not be realistic, and that we can be mostly in school with teachers vaccinated and carry forward a lot of the mitigation strategies with the kids and families who want to be in school, still allowing the ones who don't to stay on Model C. We talked about having kids after spring break back in Model A or a modified B, because part of what we're concerned about is the early release day with mitigation might be challenging, but that we could do Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday with everybody at school, and the shortened day would remain virtual. So we're discussing a variety of ideas. I think if we were going to start after spring break, we could vet those out with teachers and families a little more. And then when metrics are low, come back and put that fifth short day back in there. I think it's going to be challenging. I mean, it's already a challenge for us to feed everybody in a regular day. And then when we go to feed everybody in a shortened day, we'd probably be passing out sack lunches or something like that just to streamline that. And that is a thing we've conceptualized, but we haven't worked on logistics. You know, we've only discussed it. But I think people feel the same way. And I know our teachers would rather be all in than hybrid. They, you know, the hybrid is super challenging for them. And so that might be an advantage, is to say that if we're not going to come back hybrid next week, that we're going to commit to being in person, you know, 4 or 5 days a week after Easter. That might be a reasonable trade-off, assuming there's not spikes. And I think to Ms. Reyes's point, we're probably all going to have highs and lows. And with vaccinations, those metrics may be re-examined, that you don't have to be as low as they thought at first. You know, this is a changing, evolving environment for us as well. And I think we're going to have to be flexible in our planning and our prioritizing. And so just to throw those ideas out that some of the things that members are thinking about, we're also thinking about. You know, we don't have anything pinned down, but I think we're wondering some of the same stuff you're wondering and concerned about the same things you are. And I'll be quiet, Mr. President, now, because I think you probably need to complete the set of 5 here with your opinions.
I'm between the both of them. I've got grandchildren in Utah that are have never been out of school. They've never done online or anything else. I've got grandkids here at Great Hearts that are in school. I've got kids up in Reno, Nevada that were out of school for snow days and for smoke days because of the smoke coming over from California into Reno up there. And they just enjoy going back, but they wear their masks. The teachers have taught them how to clean their desk up and whatever. And maybe it's just teaching and training, you know, some of the kids for what they need to do, which could help them into the future. We just need to get them back. But at the same time, we need to make sure that the teachers feel comfortable that they come back and have some semblance of, you know, security. My one grandson over at Great Hearts got it from his dad and had to stay out for 10 days, but he knew what needed to be done and just stayed it, but he stayed online and did what he needed to do. So I guess I understand what Kathy's saying, get these kids back, they need it. All of them are not good learners on that. I've got some of the kids that just love it. Other ones that they would much rather play Minecraft than listen to the teacher, whatever might be. And I don't know, I think the natural break, if we could bring them back full time right after spring break, that'd finish up 1 quarter, I believe, and then that would be the 4th quarter right after spring break. That way we could get everybody back and have the 4th break a clean off, you know, clean slate with 3rd quarter finishing out and 4th quarter starting there. So I guess my opinion is get them back as quickly as I can, but I would think that we need to make sure the teachers feel comfortable, the staff feels comfortable, and maybe we wait till then, and we've got one more meeting between now and then. We meet again on the 9th.
We'll meet again on the 9th. Yes, that's a regular meeting, so that will happen.
Are you online?
I'm sorry. Yes, we do meet on the 9th. Be another opportunity if the board wants to talk about it some more. We're happy to have it on the agenda. I mean, it is a tough issue, and I think you know, to Ms. Reyes's point is COVID, some form of it is here to stay, and things are not gonna go back to normal. We're gonna try to get them to near normal, and we are going to need to adapt in ways other than, you know, closing school, probably to, you know, continue with preparing our kids for productive lives. And, you know, I think getting the teachers their first round of vaccinations is a pretty important component of returning. The other thing that's in the material for the board item tonight that I didn't talk about is I think Avondale Elementary is coming back after spring break. Theirs is just a week earlier than ours. Tolleson Union, who our kids matriculate to for high school, had tentatively set returning after spring break. I don't know that the board has taken action, and maybe Sarah can fill us in on what the latest from the high school district is. I think Tolleson Elementary meets tomorrow night. They're considering it. Pendergast has said they're closed until further notice, but Union to our southeast stayed in hybrid after the fall and through the winter. Their schools are much smaller, and they didn't have space. They didn't have the same space conflicts. They've been able to get a lot of social distancing given the size of their district and the configuration of their buildings. And so that's kind of what's happening in the surrounding area and in the Tolleson feeder partner system.
Dr. Freeman, I just have one other question. I know bringing them back, there's still going to be some restrictions. I don't know what are policies or whatever. Masks, I'm sure we need. Disinfecting. Have we got supplies that we can make sure are available for teachers, for kids, for students, for cleanup, all that other kind of stuff, and bringing them back all you know, after the spring break?
Yes, we were all geared up for that in the fall, and we didn't get to stay open as long as we'd wanted. We had geared up for going to hybrid and staying in hybrid. And as you all know, we didn't stay in hybrid. So a lot of that is in inventory, and we've learned a lot since then too. So I think some of the procedures are going to be modified. all administrator team met on COVID and some safety things last Thursday. And, you know, of course, we're learning, county recommendations are evolving and changing. So the other thing is we've had on-site support services open the whole time for families in need. And so we've learned quite a bit from them, you know, in how to respond, you know, when there are illnesses at school and issues in families. We have looked at, I have personally looked at a new technology that is a disinfecting tower that runs on a robot. Like, I think you probably everybody's familiar with the Roomba vacuum. What they do is they put a little two-dimensional grid map of the classroom in a little memory card, and it goes around and by itself and sprays the room when the teacher would be at lunch or when the kids are at art. We've already talked about adding ionizing piggyback systems or HVAC system to kill germs and viruses as they circulate through the system. One of the implications of that would be having the fans run even if the compressors aren't on. So there'd be an additional operating cost, but we could really do a much better job of sterilizing our learning environment by taking it one step further and getting some of those things in place. Of course, those are, you know, significant capital expenses. So it's not just like the kind of thing where I can go on Amazon and have them here by Thursday. But we're working on all of those ideas.
Dr. Freeman, just one more question. Do you have any idea what percentage of our teachers want to take the vaccination?
Yes, Ms. Reyes, what we estimated was 81% have plans to do it. And that's when I said like 1 in 5 right now aren't planning. So only 5% have both, but I think something like 40% already have their second shot scheduled, and, you know, another 30% are trying to get scheduled. So they're working on it. And right now we haven't questioned the reasons why people aren't getting vaccinated. But if it gets down to like push comes to shove for assignments, you know, we may have to require, you know, a medical rationale for refusing an assignment or something along those lines. And we want to protect our teachers who are vulnerable. So they would be, of course, the highest priority in assigning to online or remote learning.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Doc.
Go.
I apologize. Just to that point, I don't know if there's any other barriers that are being identified by teachers, but if there's anything the district can do to help reduce that number, I would be supportive of that, whether that's one of our Wednesdays that's a asynchronous day that just becomes, you know, students completely on their own, so teachers have some additional flexibility, whatever that is, because I do feel, and not to belabor the point, that it is very important, as I know the rest of the board does, that our students do return to the classroom as soon as possible. So I do feel very strongly about that returning after spring recess. So hopefully, whatever barriers do exist for teachers, if there's anything the district can do to help, I would certainly be supportive of that.
One of the things we talked about, Mr. Rader, is the Tolleson Pod second shot schedule. The 26th and the 27th is a Friday and Saturday, is excusing teachers from doing their remote instruction on that Friday if they need to go get a shot, if they're scheduled, because there's only going to be so many openings that we have to fit them into, and not everybody can go on Saturday. So that was one of the things we discussed. Otherwise, you know, part and parcel of the reason we're asking to put a director in HR is all of the, I mean, I don't know if I can adequately describe the kind of responses that Lisa Kelly, Dr. Kelly, mostly personally has had to field that run, all the way from, medical to emotional and family stressors that run the gamut of all of our employees. And it literally is dawn to dusk, that people are contacting her about things going on. And so, I think if you talk to the staff who've had issues, we've worked super hard to be responsive, but there is kind of almost a limit to the human element, much like you see in other frontline people. And our HR department has just taken a lot of that on themselves, and it's really not sustainable, especially if we consider, like Ms. Reyes said, this is, and I know she's dealing with HR in the city. This is going to be here for us for a while, and we're going to be dealing with these implications and managing them. This is a thing we're not fixing, we're managing. And so, we're trying to make those shifts and do that when necessary. If you hear suggestions or things from other people, we're open to them. We continue to meet with kids and teachers and parents about things we can do. And if other people have ideas we haven't thought of, so, please let us know.
Thank you. All right, I don't know that I want to belabor it any longer. We do need to come up with a motion.
This is Amy, and I move that the governing board approve a March 22nd, 21 as the start date for return to in-person instruction with a modified B plan for grade levels or programs deemed appropriate by the governing board based on the level of COVID metrics in the state or county or those released on the 2/4/21 based upon the week of 1/17/21 for the district, as well as the status of vaccination efforts.
Thank you. And I will go ahead and second that.
Mr. Nielsen,
Aye.
Mrs. Contreras,
Aye.
Mr. Rader,
Aye.
Mrs. Reyes,
Nay.
Mrs. Sosnick.
Aye.
4-1. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I guess I just need to remind you the next we have a special board meeting on February 23rd and the next regular meeting on March the 9th. Can we have a motion to adjourn for this evening?
This is Amy, and I'll move that we adjourn at 8:28.
Thank you, Amy.
This is Sarah, and I'll second that.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Nielsen,
Aye.
Mrs. Contreras,
Aye.
Mr. Rader,
Aye.
Mrs. Reyes,
Aye.
Mrs. Sosnick.
Aye.
Thank you so much for being with us and hanging in there for so long tonight. Appreciate all that you do.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.